Masashi had not eaten well in the past few days. He did not like this type of food in the past, but the food tasted absolutely delicious to him now. I inspected the cave last night and it was a standard low-grade ethnic cave, said Wang Zheng. Only now did everyone realize that a simple picture was drawn on the ground. This cave is divided into 3 levels. The Queen Zerg is on the 3rd floor, most of the brainworms are found on the 2nd, and on the 1st is a labyrinth and some guards. It will be manageable as long as we lure the Zerg out. As Wang Zheng said that, the people around him looked surprisingly at one another while wondering to themselves how much work had been done by Wang Zheng the night before. Actually, Wang only spent a small amount of time at the cave before he headed to the seaside to catch fish. Because he felt the surprise in everyone, he laughed and said, I sprayed Zerg liquid on myself and was able to conceal myself for a while. However, since it didn't work while I was close to the area with brainworms, I had to kill the brainworms. Without them, the Queen's defense will be reduced by half at least. Among the Zerg, the Queens did not have much battle capabilities and merely reproduced. The brainworms actually held the most power. We have an idea, proclaimed Song Li. Are you thinking of, it's too dangerous, Yuan Yi frowned. As long as it was within range, when an ability X triggered, it would attract the brainworms, and it was then when the brainworms should be killed. Brother, we have confidence. This is also a form of practice for us, but the brainworms are very sly. You only have one shot at killing them once they show themselves, so Meng Tian's archery skills have to be accurate. Once it shows itself, I will definitely not let it return alive, said Meng Tian. These actions are full of peril, so you all must think about it carefully. Everyone around was aware that failure would mean elimination at most. However, as ability X was tied to mental strength, as such, one slight moment of carelessness would lead to them becoming an idiot. Song Li and 2 others exchanged looks and grit their teeth. Since we have reached this point and as Europa Military College students are no wimps, let's do it. That is right, the 3 of us have faced resistance in this area, we can remind each other. We can do it. It has to be said that the fire in everyone's hearts were lit up and hope was evident. Everyone here except Meng Tian and Luo Fei were auxiliary and had ordinary abilities. They had rushed here and had not given up hope, and now they wanted to fight together. People began to move towards the entrance of the cave. The process of attracting the brainworms was dangerous, so Song Li and the rest had to maintain a fairly defensive posture. The control they had to exert needed to be firm to ensure that the brainworms would be attracted. In the control room, Meng Ao and 2 others frowned. These guys are playing with a lot at stake here. Generally, when the participants faced life or death situations, they could employ the protection of their bracelets. But in this case, no protective measures could be adopted. That's more like how soldiers behave. These few guys are not too bad. The Europa Military College has been rising quickly over the last few years, and their students have been performing very well. It was true that due to political factors, Europa had a tiny voice in the solar system. However, their production of machine-like warriors was by far the best, and they were known for their courage and having no fear of death. This could be seen from the students' styles, in their willpower. As the saying goes, the diamond cannot be polished without friction, nor can a man be polished without trials. These 3 fellas deserve extra credit for having the courage to try. The 3 people nodded. On the battlefield, there was no perfect strategy, and much effort was required. To have 50% odds was already not too bad. With the ambush, defense, and sniper teams all ready, Song Li and the 2 others glanced at each other and their abilities were aligned. Not long after, their bodies shivered and their expressions turned grave as if they were battling the brainworms. Thankfully, these brainworms were bred and therefore were relatively less wild. The 3 of them were suffering, but they held on. Luo Fei quietly lied on the ground and whispered, "The worm is beginning to move and is headed towards us at a low speed." The slow speed was due to the fact that they wanted to follow the worm at a slow pace in order to guarantee the success of attracting them. 300 meters to go, Luo Fei continued. There was no one joking anymore, because everyone had felt the shuddering of the ground. People understood now that those who were powerhouses had the capabilities to do something. Yuan Yi was worried about his 3 buddies. Song Li and the 2 others had pale faces, and evidently it was their first time in such a battle. Wang Jung kept quiet, but he could clearly feel the battle between Song Li and the brainworms. It was a bizarre situation. Ever since he had received training for the 5 elements and coupled with his previous epiphany, there seemed to be something close to him and yet he could not grab it. According to Bonehead, the second layer of the primordial regression technique was an immaterial force which could not be fathomed. It could have involved secrets from the Rand Empire. Only when super soldiers understood it could there be progression to the next level. Now that Wang Jung had a clear direction, the second layer should be about mankind's ability X. However, evidently, the methodology employed by the Rand Empire was convoluted, resulting in their human genes being eliminated from them. Wang Jung appeared stunned and was immersed in the middle of this battle. Zergs loved human brains as they discovered the ability of human brains to evolve. This was also the power of humans and the reason for their place in the universe, while Zergs underwent evolution phagocytically. Legend had it that Zergs managed to metamorphose in the past but failed to reach the peak. Without a doubt, Zergs had a strong desire towards the strengths of other species and thus the brainworm was born. A bunch of worms suddenly appeared around them. As they were too far, Meng Tian did not shift her vision and was oblivious to it. Despite being in the best position, she was still too far by about 100 meters. This distance was not fine since the laser could not hit. A laser attack could not kill the brainworms. Once it was fired, there would be protection by other worms, and the brainworms would not appear again after retreating. The 3 of them were defending mightily as the brainworms were greedily invading their mental world. Meng Ao and 2 others were observing the situation. Compared to the physical attacks from the direction of the Milo and Lin Ruofeng, this was more interesting and insightful, but also more dangerous. It is slightly dangerous. Weird, there should be movement from Wang Jung. This kid might be poorer at commanding. How could he blank out at such a key moment? Wang Jung, on the screen, was stunned and was holding his hands together, as if he was very concerned about the ongoing battle. He is reaffirming the rhythm of battle. Although his sense is good and his technique is fine, his ability to improvise on the spot is slightly poor. However, there is not much that can be done to help this. Meng Ao let out a sigh of relief. The 3 of them had Wang Jung's detailed information in their hands. The biggest problem with Wang Jung was that he did not possess ability X. This was also a point that the 3 generals overlooked. They discovered too many wonderful qualities on Wang Jung, but in the world today, people without ability X were faced with a huge bottleneck. It was not possible for someone without the ability to grasp battle situations accurately and thus he could not become a commander in the future. One's capability determined their horizon. At this time, the color of Song Li's face began to change, his mouth began to bleed, and his eyes began to blur. Not good, Song Li will not be able to hold on much longer. Do we attack? Said Yuan Yi anxiously. No, the brainworms have not entered the range of attack. Meng Tian shook her head and was so calm that some might consider her to be aloof. In this life and death situation, Yuan Yi was biting his teeth, and the brainworms could feel their weakness. Therefore, they improved the pace of their footsteps. There was about 20 meters, but this distance felt like the distance of the gateway to hell. Zhao Wanqin and Ku Chouji started to assist with sharing the pressure. However, their reparation skills were subpar and they looked clueless. Meng Tian knew about this, but in such a situation, the only option was to give up. Wang Jung felt this invisible confrontation. The 5 elements was a feeling between materiality and nothingness. After training, he could feel that, but he did not know how to insert himself, because he did not possess ability X. Using what Bonehead said, the first step to become a super soldier was to be awakened. We have to give up, said Masashi calmly. This was no longer a risky affair, there was no chance anymore. At this moment, Wang Jung placed his hand on Song Li's shoulder. Yuan Yi, who was beside them, wanted to stop him, but he failed. At this time, no one ought to have approached. Someone mentally vulnerable would be attacked by brainworms and could jeopardize the rhythm of the group. The 3 generals looked at each other. They realized that it was not very wise and it was a huge mistake. Masashi and Meng Tian froze, while Luo Fei's tiny eyes flashed. They did not think Wang Jung would make an unwise move at this time. However, a strange change happened. The 3 of them, who were about to be lost, regained their energy magically, and their pale faces started blushing again. The brainworms appeared to have gone mad and wanted to retreat desperately. Their bodies, however, went forward uncontrollably. The worms surrounding the brainworms were confused and did not know whether to proceed or retreat. A ray of chilly light illuminated the sky, and everyone felt a biting chill. The brainworms shivered and lumped together, while the other worms fled. Zhang Runan and Zhang Shan immediately rallied the others and rushed forward. Zhang Runan acted like a boss and single-handedly dragged the brainworms while others were behind her. It was a rather domineering situation. After succeeding, everyone started to leave quickly. After all, waiting for the worms to recover was rather troublesome. Luo Fei quietly scattered what looked like liquid from the worms along the way. Although Song Li and the two others had pale faces, it did not seem like anything too serious. In fact, the three people were quite curious what had happened. D*MN. Even this was successful. I thought we were done for. Wang Zheng, you are too brave. Your act could have led to disturbances which could have even accidentally caused you to become crazy, Yuan Yi loudly said. He was slightly angry, and this immaturity could have put someone in harm's way. Brother Yi, at first we could hold no longer. Once Wang Zheng put his hand together with us, we suddenly recovered. It was rather bizarre, laughed Song Li, who had energy to laugh about the situation. This battle provided invaluable experience to the three of them. You have ability X? Everyone was surprised, including Masa Si, who felt strange. Wang Zheng shrugged. No, but I could sense the danger, so I decided to lend a helping hand. Thank God it was successful. To participate in IG, one had to go through many tests. People with ability X could not hide it. At most, it was split between strength and power. The three generals looked at each other and did not know what to say. Was this unconventional situation attributable to luck? He does not have ability X. Do you think our equipment is wrong? I believe this kid is in a state of half-awakening and is of poor quality. However, he is the type with plenty of potential later on, which is very rare. People who do big things in life require a tinge of luck. Meng Ao nodded. This time's success was due to luck, and the three of them were surprised in the process. After the victory, Meng Tian's contributions were not neglected. That arrow was rather fearsome and directly took a life. The chilly energy they felt was Meng Tian's ability. It was no wonder she was chosen as a commander. The others who were initially unsatisfied with the selection realized that it was very hard to deal with any of the chosen commanders. Now it was the time to wait for the next step in the attack plans. Song Li and two others required rest and could no longer take part in the attack. However, with the brainworms dead, the probability of success was much higher. Meng Tian decided to join the attack amidst the chaos. There would be no shot at victory if they waited for the queen to react. Although it was disgusting, when people saw Meng Tian spray brainworm liquid on herself, the others had nothing to say since this girl was sturdier than other guys. The team set off. Song Li and the two others had not recovered from the previous battle, so this battle would be more dangerous. What did you feel just now? The sea, the sun. Zhao Wanqin and Ku Chouji said that during Wang Zheng's moment of contact, they felt a steady stream of energy provided to them. It was as if they had found a weapon. Song, what did you feel? Among the three of them, Song Li's skills were of a higher level. Song Li smiled. The Milky Way, what kind of person was Wang Zheng? This feeling was indescribable to outsiders. It obviously had horrifying power, but at the same time, it felt ethereal. Because this feeling was abnormal, it could be an illusion because Wang Zheng did not have ability X. Wang Zheng and the 21 others in his group had already walked into the nest. They occasionally saw Zerg around them, but they turned a blind eye to them. Some were even scared of Wang Zheng and the others. The participants of this team did not think they could actually kill a queen Zerg. On one hand, they could not stand the contempt of people from the moon and the Martians, and on the other hand, they wanted to do something, and it was pointless to sit around waiting. Who would have thought that they would have the opportunity to kill the Queen Zerg now? Although they were walking around Zergs, everyone had more confidence now. Although they were using the brainworm liquid as cover, everyone had to breathe quietly. The sickle Zerg's maze did not have much effect on Wang Zheng. To put it simply, the structure of a low-standard worm was rather simple. As a space physics researcher with a strong grasp on complex spatial concepts, this was somewhat pediatric. It was only about who had the ability to think of the application of space physics in this area. People followed Wang Jung as his composure had provided others with confidence. When they quietly went to the second level, everyone could not help but feel a sense of relief. By continuing down, they would enter the Queen Zerg's territory, and their success or failure would be determined in this stage. There was no going back at this point. Either they killed the Queen Zerg or they would be finished here. Masashi smiled as he had unknowingly ended up at this stage too. Actually, it was not wise to do so, but he could not keep from walking faster. There was a desire coming from within, a desire to try. Standing in front of the cave entrance, Wang Jung felt the beating of hearts. It was not theirs but the Queen Zerg's. He clearly knew that the Queen Zerg was inside. The three generals waited patiently. No one had ever employed such a dangerous and bizarre tactic. One small, careless mistake could result in falling into a place with no return. On the other hand, the tactics employed by the other side was clear. Attract the Zerg out for destruction, attack while progressing, defend while retreating. But progress here was evidently much faster. Although they had arrived at the nest of the Queen Zerg, was the situation really as they thought it would be? Wang Jung's mood changed a little. There was an ominous feeling in his heart. It was at this time that the whole cave started shaking. Luo Fei clung to the wall with a huge shift in his expression. This is not good, the Zergs are headed towards us. Meng Tian, Runan, Masashi, and I, the four of us will charge in. The rest stay here and guard the entrance of the cave. Make full use of the time we have. Right after he said that, Wang Jung rushed in and the three others followed him without hesitating. Wasn't Meng Tian the person that the people thought was the leader? At this time, nobody was fussy anymore. Zhang Shan shouted out loud, "Brothers, whether or not we progress will depend on this fight. Defensive group, stay in front. Don't hold back, whether we live or die, we have to fight to the end." Yuan Yi roared loudly and charged forward himself. In this critical moment, being decisive was key, and there should be no fussing over anything else. A laser sounded. There was no retreat at this point, and they could only strongly defend within the given terrain. Zerg caves were all brightly lit. This was not due to the ore but a substance secreted from their bodies. In the foggy cave, a huge Zerg was exuding glittering green light over thousands of meters away in the distance. Around him was a group of fortified Zergs with sickles. The Zergs glared at them. When the Queen Zerg let out a shrill scream, all surrounding Zergs came rushing out. There were hundreds of enhanced Zergs, and even more of them climbed out from eggshells on the ground. They rushed towards them as well. I will lead from the front. Masashi, you stay on the left, Runan on the right, Meng Tian in the middle. We will help to push in. The remainder will depend on you. Wang Jung pulled out 2 alloy knives. Zhang Runan took out an alloy spear, Masashi took out his alloy knife as well, while Meng Tian had a bow in her hand. The following action was to rush towards the oncoming bunch of Zergs. Masashi's laser and Meng Tian's arrows were launched at the same time, and about 7 or 8 Zergs fell immediately. Zhang Runan and Masashi were tasked to protect both wings while staying on the move at the same time. Long-ranged attacks could stop the Zergs from advancing. However, the Zergs were not afraid of dying. The 4 of them continued charging forward quickly but only managed to progress by 200 meters. They were approaching melee range. Dealing with the enhanced Zergs required extra effort and greater rhythm. Zhang Runan roared loudly and white rays came out from her alloy spear. Masashi's alloy knife did not appear to have any change. However, cutting through Zergs was like cutting through beancurd. Strange light was glowing out of his alloy knife, and the body of the knife was trembling. Wang Jung led from the front with both of his knives dancing in the air. The bunch of Zergs did not think that the team of humans could still progress at such a fast pace when facing them. The Queen Zerg felt threatened and let out an ear-piercing scream. Although the Zergs were dying quickly, Wang Jung's group stopped moving forward. The Zergs behind were greater in amount, but they would eventually be swarmed to death. Wang Jung roared rather softly. White rays were launched and tens of Zergs fell. Flying knife. Each knife could pierce through numerous Zergs. Zergs with greater strength were stuck on the wall, and the distance between them and the Zergs chasing them grew. Zhang Runan roared loudly, "We will hold the ground, you guys rush ahead." Right after that, her stature started shrinking. Masashi also gave up on progressing and stood next to Zhang Runan, protecting them from both flanks. However, this method of killing was not feasible. Wang Zheng suddenly grabbed Meng Tian and said, "Ready?" Meng Tian froze, and right after, her body, like an arrow released from a bow, was launched towards the Queen Zerg. White rays flew out from the bow in all directions towards the Zerg, causing them to crumple. She was like a fairy archer, the alloy arrows gracefully flying towards the Queen Zerg. However, when she was at the highest point, she did not shoot any more arrows. Instead, a blinding, silver light could be seen gathering in Meng Tian's hands. At this point, everyone could feel a chilling energy. Zung! A single silver arrow flew towards the Zerg. It was like a silver cannonball flying towards them. Boom! At that point, time seemed to have stopped as the Queen Zerg and Zergs surrounding her froze. Ability X. Frost Seal. Meng Tian lost all her energy after employing her ability X, so she started falling from the sky. Wang Zheng rushed from the side with full speed and caught the falling Meng Tian. Meng Tian had a pale face, but she smiled as she said, "We won." Wang Zheng wanted to answer her, but he heard a shout by Masashi. Once the Queen Zerg died, the other Zerg would not put up a defense. However, the Queen Zerg would explode before dying. Boom! A wave of explosions occurred, and Wang Zheng placed Meng Tian beneath him to divert the shocks. Wang Zheng felt dizzy. It felt like his brain was knocked by a hammer. What was this? He wondered to himself. Meng Ao had a dignified expression on his face. On the one hand, he was proud of his daughter, while on the other hand, he was surprised. This Queen Zerg was secretly evolving. A common Queen Zerg would not be able to launch such an attack. The group of people outside did not escape, but they had been pushed to the cave's entrance. They were on the brink of death, but the Zergs started to retreat after the explosion. Could it be? Yuan Yi and the others were in disbelief. Meng Tian felt that Wang Zheng had lost his energy. She was shocked and quickly hugged Wang Zheng while tears rolled out of her eyes. Zhang Runan and Masashi rushed over. Masashi had more experience and placed his palm on Wang Zheng's forehead. "Everything should be all right, right? This is all because of my carelessness," said Meng Tian. Masashi had a strange expression. Zhang Runan muffled, "Why is this guy so fickle?" When Masashi saw Zhang Runan, he turned away before saying, "He should be fine. My head got knocked hard and I almost died of suffocation." Wang Zheng took in a large breath of air as he regained consciousness without making sufficient psychological preparation. Masashi shrugged helplessly and said, "You are so fortunate. Even after taking a blow from the Queen Zerg, you can still joke." "Maybe it's this hug that is making me uncomfortable and so I am reluctant to die," laughed Wang Zheng. Meng Tian could not stay calm anymore and pushed Wang Zheng aside. Wang Zheng shrieked as he was tossed aside. "Do you have any humanity? Why are you treating an injured person like that?" The others rushed inside, and upon seeing the Queen Zerg's body, cheered loudly. "Runan, are you alright?" Yuan Yi asked as he ran over gallantly. At this moment, Zhang Runan had been restored to normal. Although she still had a cold attitude, no sarcastic comments were made. "Just a flesh wound, I'm alright. What an exciting battle." At last, the few talented people who were able to break the mold. "It seems like we'll need to beef up our remaining selections, or these children will underestimate us, ha 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 ha." The three generals were very happy, but Meng Ao was the happiest. Meng Tian's performance helped put him in better standings with others. Meanwhile, in the observation room downstairs, Lear and the others could not believe it. The battle on the other side was still going on, but the battle on this side had already ended. These people now understood why Lear had taken notice of Meng Tian. A very strong freezing ability coupled with being an excellent archer. In this era, where lasers were the main weapon, what good was a bow? Ordinary archers are naturally useless, but ability X users were on a completely different level. When they used special mech warriors, they had the ability to convert the entire energy shield into a cloud. This was the real terrifying area of Meng Tian. This was a commander. A little distance away, a fat man secretly came climbing out from the ground. From the group that just got eliminated, he was the sole survivor. This was without a doubt a great victory, but student Wong did not stay on Demon Island. At the conclusion of the battle, he was rushed to another location for emergency treatment. This place was the Demon Island's sister island, Paradise Island. It was a vacation destination with a medical sanctuary. Wang Jung was helpless. He felt that the impact of the brainworms wasn't a problem, but Su Yan seemed to be very serious. Meng Tian and the others also strongly requested a thorough inspection to prevent any sequelae. After arriving at Paradise Island, student Wang was repeatedly treated. Why did this feel more like a medical examination? After the medical examinations, the doctor stated that there were no problems and he was in good health. All he needed was some rest and everything would be okay. Compared to such a comfortable environment, he much preferred the lively bug habitat. But since they were here, might as well take it east and wait to be notified. Upon checking the news, they received a video message from Tyrant Su. Boss, regarding that matter, nothing much actually. I just wanted to ask if you had some time. Could you reply to my message if you are free? The message was left a few days ago. It could be seen that Yan Xiaoshu was a little bit anxious. Upon answering, Yan Xiaoshu looked surprised. Boss, you're free now? I guess so, been resting the whole day. You were looking for me regarding something? Boss, are there any places near you that can access CT? If there are, come on to play 2 battles. We're under a contract, so you have to play at least once a month, but if it is too much trouble, then it's fine. Although Yan Xiaoshu did not express it, it could be seen on Solin's side that they were under pressure. The list of challenges to Skeleton had gotten very long, and it consisted of a lot of influential players. Having dragged on for so long, he couldn't stand the pressure anymore. Solin was so anxious that he had blisters in his mouth every day. The initial agreement was to fight 5 battles. On CT's side, the preparatory investments were already made. Everything was ready, only Skeleton was left. Wang Jung nodded his head and answered with a simple, yes. Seed Sports Club on the Moon had no internet cafes, so if you wanted to play CT, you had to go to the sports club. The local people regarded CT as a new sport, not a game. The number of people in the club who played CT wasn't small, but the locals valued privacy, thus every CT room was by itself. When Wang Jung opened a CT room, the voice of the female lunar waitress was as sweet as cakes, but she was chased out of the CT room. CT company. Skeleton is online. A hoarse voice broke the calm atmosphere of the company. But no one paid any attention. The next moment, the entire company's activities sped up. Solin, having just received confirmation of the date from Yan Xiaoshu, also jumped out from the office. It was as if he was suddenly 20 years younger. He started to shout, hurry, release it according to the planned schedule. Asia CT System News. Skeleton is online. Clear Channel 1 immediately, start the live broadcast. This was the highest treatment from court. Only in the professional league would the CT channel be used for live broadcasts. The advertisement banners on the CT interface were totally replaced by the message. Those that were waiting for the matchmaking system to place them immediately cancelled their queues upon seeing the news update. Who would want to play at this time? Everyone was rushing to watch the god play. Although there were players that had already found a match and were selecting their mecha and map, they immediately conceded the game upon seeing the system notification. So what if their points would be deducted? Skeleton had come online, and what could be more important than this? This was going to be a visual and technical feast. Hello, everyone, I am professional caster Young Deer. I am here once again, and as all of you know, Bubbly Foam is getting ready. Those who wish to see the beautiful lady will have to be patient. Haha. Since the last battle against Mars, Skeleton has been missing for a long time. Seems like our skeleton god has been away to practice. I am really looking forward to this. Young Deer suddenly appeared on Channel 1. It appeared as if something was not right. There were various calls under the channel. Oh my god, is this the super trash-talking deer? When did he change genders? Suspicious, did you forget your medicine today? Wrong, you definitely ate your medicine today. Young Deer turned a deaf ear to these cries. Recently, some people said that I am an entertaining commentator. Okay, I admit it. I am being an entertaining commentator, as per my job. A female dressed in a police mecha pilot uniform suddenly appeared in the middle of the channel. "Hello, everyone, sorry to have kept you waiting. I was working in the police station and arrived here late, please forgive me. I am Bubbly Foam." At the same time, Rainbow of the Skeleton Corps came online with a smile. It was a perverted smile, but he quickly became serious. These are not the run-of-the-mill opponents. This typical discussion immediately was returned by a burst of ridicule. Yao Ailun was crazy. Whenever Skeleton came online, it was time for the Skeleton Corps to feast. The built-up pressure was released in a breath. No matter how strong the opponents are, I believe that a miracle will happen. Skeleton. Victory ho! The Skeleton Corps shouted their war cries. As the skeleton crops grew, Skeleton became more and more their spiritual pillar. A lot of times the audience would cosplay as Skeleton in battle. F***ck, could these people be any more shameless? Rainbow suddenly cursed. Inside Channel 1, there was all sorts of ridicule of the goddess voice. Bubbly Foam, abandon little red noob. I am the one true male god. Bubbly Foam, please send me a selfie of you in a bath towel. Bubbly Foam, I want to be your bath towel. Young Deer's career description. I want to be your bath toe. Bam, someone was kicked out of Channel 1. Young Deer took the opportunity and flicked his fingers, kicking out those two who had made fun of him. It was a good feeling. Back to the main issue. Our long-awaited skeleton god is back. Let's see who the challengers are. Bubbly Foam nodded. Yes, I've casted several of his diamond tier games. Shadow of Atlantis won because of his racial advantage. As long as he has the Atlantis mech, this battle will be a one-sided steamroll. Yes, the racial advantage of the Shadow of Atlantis. Looking at his ID, everyone would think that he was a mixed heritage of Atlantean and human, because he is able to use the special mech of Atlantis. Oh, the officials have also configured a video presentation. Let us see if the strengths of the Shadow of Atlantis will be enough to challenge our skeleton god, haha. Young Deer's mouth was spouting flattering words. The audience's was a little uneasy. Had he thrown in the towel already? Under Skeleton's powerful skill, yielding was natural. But the problem was, this old deer was a troublemaker. This was a conspiracy. Hiss. The screen flashed with sparks and two mecha appeared in front of everyone's eyes. One of the special mech had all the parts of its node emitting a ring of blue, a typical feature of Atlantis mechs. The mech emitting the blue rays is the Shadow Executioner Mk3 of Atlantis. His opponent is the Team FN Bourbon Main Road, something that everyone is familiar with, led by the world-class player, Swiss Army Knife, Bubbly Foam explained. At this moment, the two mecha were locked in fierce close combat. Fluid movements, all kinds of footwork, dodges, giant swings, all at the same time. A full 10 seconds passed and not a single scratch on either side. It was sensational inside of Channel 1. What kind of person was FN Bourbon Main Road Swiss Army Knife? He had another title that others were familiar with. The man that even kings feared to touch. The kings on the thrones didn't wish to meet this opponent. The reason why he was in the diamond tier was because he had only played in the training mode, not matchmaking. It wasn't like he had never been on the throne, but rather the system had automatically impeached him due to him not having played a matchmaking game in over a month. In the video, the speed of the Swiss Army Knife's mech suddenly increased. Its movements changed and it struck at all angles of Shadow of Atlantis. Is this a trick of Swiss Army Knife? 360 degrees attack. A godly skill that could take on 5 others' opponents at the same time. It was a vicious move, and 5 mecha could have been destroyed by it. Looking at this battle, the rhythm was getting crazy. A machine roared out inside the channel. FN Bourbon Corps had a trick up their sleeve, and Swiss Army Knife was the core of it. Under this situation, how was Shadow of Atlantis going to deal with it? Everyone was sure that if the officials were to post the final results now, it wouldn't be a loss for Shadow of Atlantis. However, facing Swiss Army Knife was a death sentence in itself, so how was Shadow of Atlantis going to handle this? The Shadow Executioner Mk3 started moving and also increased in speed. Suddenly, the mech blurred. Bang! The next moment it was behind Swiss Army Knife. Another mech similar to the Shadow Executioner Mk3 appeared. At the same time, there was another Shadow Executioner Mk3 rushing at Swiss Army Knife. Two Shadow Executioner Mk3 looking the exact same yet performing totally different actions. It was clear that one of them was an illusion, but the problem was telling which one was real. Be it the naked eye or sensor instruments, nothing was clear. After image kill, this is the Atlantis mech's special skill, bubbly foam explained after it was displayed. However, was it useful? A 360-degree slash had no blind angle, moreover, it could both attack and defend. Let alone 2 mechs. Even if there were 5 mechs, the result would be the same under the attack. Both the Shadow Executioner Mk3 launched their attacks simultaneously. Swiss Army knife exerted the death slice while defending, but at the next moment, the 2 Shadow Executioner Mk3 suddenly exchanged their positions. No one could see what happened as it happened as quickly as a flash of lightning. All they could see were 2 Shadow Executioner Mki's suddenly becoming one. Then it turned and left only a view of its back. Flames leapt to the sky with a huge noise. Shadow of Atlantis win. Swiss Army knife exploded, the attack all came to nothing, and the defense didn't do anything either. Mysterious but powerful, this was the power of an Atlantis mech. It was energy. Energy attacks are what Atlanteans are best at. Moreover, Swiss Army knife made a mistake. He shouldn't have defended and instead should have used all his strength to attack. In that way, he might have still stood a chance. You guys thought I would say he should change mech to win? Impossible, haha. It's an honor if you can leave a mark on a Shadow Executioner Mk3. Old Deer insulted without any warning. The challenger was exceptional, and Shadow of Atlantis was very famous in the CT world. He could have been sitting on the throne, but he was too strong when he used the Atlantis mecha, so much so that when he reached the Diamond Division, no one wanted to play with him. It was only acceptable if he abandoned the use of the Atlantis mech. It was kind of unfair, as the difference between Atlantis mecha and human mecha was like driving a manual transmission truck and driving an automatic sports car. Besides all the unexpected special abilities, Atlantis mecha could even correct the driver's piloting. Even if the driver was a newbie, he could be a master in no time. It was like a cheat in the CT world. However, even in the CT world, humans were not able to use Atlantean mecha, and the Atlanteans were not that interested in court even if they were to play. They usually played inside the Atlantis Republic and rarely went to humans' region. Moreover, the so-called cheat was meaningless towards them. Every Atlantean was elite, and the reason why Shadow of Atlantis was considered shameless was because he didn't inherit the excellency of Atlantis even though he had 1/4 Atlantean lineage. He was short and chubby, and even the worst student in any military school could beat him silly in 100 out of 100 rounds. The problem was that in the CT world, with the Atlantean lineage he had and using the special features of Atlantean mecha, Shadow of Atlantis could easily use a variety of top battle skills as well as all the special techniques. Even in the real world, Atlanteans still had series of restrictions when using these special techniques, but in CT world, he could have it all just by starting his mech. Abusing such a cheat was quite bad, but there was no way around it. No one wanted to play with Shadow of Atlantis due to the cheat, so he disappeared for a while, and now he came out again. Even violent masters didn't want to play against Swiss Army knife, and Shadow of Atlantis had the bug that had beaten a master like a newbie. How could young Deer not be happy? Skeleton is in a bit of trouble. We all know Skeleton is best at his speed and techniques, but now he has an opponent faster than him, and the techniques, well, we all know the special feature of the Atlantis mech, the techniques mean nothing. However, we should trust the great Skeleton, he is the true god. He will use the war god #1 to prove that Atlantis is just a loser you can beat with your eyes closed. I believe in him. Young Deer laughed. He had learned how to use irony. People called him trash-talking Deer. Now he would stop trash-talking people. Instead, he built an icon and shot it down. At this time, everyone understood that this old trash-talking Deer was being sarcastic and manipulating Skeleton not to change his mech. Suddenly, trash-talking Deer got attacked by the crowd. Old Deer, are you challenging my IQ? How about I go and smash your window? Old Deer, stop dreaming. Atlantis is nothing. In CT cabin, Wang Jung also watched this video, with some explanation from the CT company. Solon had done well. The opponent was a rare, mixed-blooded Atlantean. The mech was Atlantis Shadow Executioner mech. One could only use this special mech if he had Atlantean lineage. This opponent was unusual. Atlantean mecha had always been very mysterious, and there were a lot of legends about them. Watching them was like seeing the legends becoming true. It was like magic, mysterious but powerful. It was the era of interstellar great voyages. Despite the powerful military and strong desire to expand, humans chose to negotiate when facing Atlantis, which was just a single star. Wang Jun smiled. He had heard of Atlantean mecha before. This amount of lineage might not be enough to drive a real mech, but it was more than enough in court. The existence of Atlantis was extremely mysterious, and it played an important role of helping human mecha to develop. But as Atlantis once said, they had always been imitated but never been surpassed. The opponent was ready, and he chose the Shadow Executioner Mk3, the most developed conventional mech of Atlantis. Wang Meng chose the War God #1 confidently and hit confirm quickly. He made his decision. Skeleton chose War God #1 and confirmed. I am moved. Old Deer smiled very sneakily. He believed Skeleton would definitely fall in front of the legend of the undefeatable Atlantean. Bubbly Foam frowned, and her worrying face softened the whole of Channel 1. I still believe Skeleton can create a miracle again. Hee, equate Skeleton with miracles? I'm a stubborn person, so just as I said, you will all be disappointed sooner or later. In the channel, the Mick Milkbox stickers flooded the screen with blinking words, dedicated to Young Deer. Young Deer, go drink your milk. Young Deer, does your mom know you are so badass? According to the background data of Channel 1, the amount of audience members was 131 and the number of people sending the Milkbox stickers was 260, and it was still going up. After he had disappeared for a while, people's enthusiasm for him was kind of unbelievable. This sticker was customized for the channel. Each one costed $1 to send once, and Young Deer could receive some consolation prize. But who could understand the feeling of receiving a prize by getting sneered at? More importantly, the consolation prize was only a total deal of $5,000. Young Deer wasn't a beggar. Young Deer shrugged. Laugh at me however you want. Nowadays, you would get criticized for telling the truth. I'm not afraid, because what I said was the truth. I'm not trashing the Skeleton God. The War God #1 should be known as the #1 true God. Wait and see. Well, Skeleton might catch a cold sometime. It's inevitable to make a mistake every once in a while. Though saying that, he didn't dare to predict Skeleton would lose before everything became clear. He had eaten his milk box twice, and if he did it again, it would be a huge joke for his whole life. No matter how much money they gave him, he just wouldn't do it again. On Earth, on some island on the Pacific Ocean, a chubby teenage boy was getting ready. He was Shadow of Atlantis, with 1/4 Atlantean lineage. Normally, Atlanteans did not intermarry with human beings, but there was always exceptions, and he was one of them. However, he was not recognized by Atlantis. That's the reason why he stayed on the Earth. He didn't inherit the physical strength of Atlanteans, and the small percentage of lineage was useless on the Earth. The only place he could bring his lineage into play was in court. If the professional scene didn't ban the use of Atlantean mecha, he wouldn't be so gloomy. Skeleton was really popular recently, and his interest now was to beat the really popular ones. To beat them and see the looks of despair on their fans' faces was an enjoyment to him. His target was to become the strongest shadow in the CT world. He would beat anyone who was popular. Being an uncrowned king was definitely better than being the king on the throne. The king had to put on a flattering smile when meeting him. You are the king, I will be the Shadow Pope. What a shame that people stopped playing with him before he succeeded. Every time he appeared, the high-level game would ban the use of Atlantean mecha. He couldn't even get a match. Maybe it was because he hadn't appeared for too long, but Skeleton didn't set the restriction this time. The reason why he didn't beat Skeleton in the very beginning was because he wanted to build up his popularity. With millions of people watching the live show, it was time for him to make a move. After he blinked his eyes, the chubby teenage boy sipped his energy drink, which could boost his energy in the short term, before climbing into the CT cabin. UV1 battle record, 51 wins, 3 loses, entered Diamond 5 with crazy victory rates. His only 3 losses were caused by using human mecha due to the restriction of Atlantean mecha required by the opponents. Bubbly Foam continued introducing the challenger's information. Yeah, if we only look at the record, he is much stronger than Skeleton, Young Deer said easily. The crowd started to shout and curse. A pig can also win using the Atlantean mech. This time Young Deer replied, are you trying to say Skeleton isn't even as good as a pig? Little chicken, are you trying to bicker with me? You are too young for that. If it were not for my professional image, I could scold you for 3 days straight using different words, Young Deer mumbled to himself. The battle selection was complete and the screen started to load. Map. Wailing Canyon. Wailing Canyon was an ancient battlefield. Humans and the Zerg once fought a decisive battle here, so there was still a large amount of radiation interference even now. Skeleton. War God Number 1 Shadow of Atlantis, Shadow Executioner Mk3, Special. Boom. The players were loaded into the battlefield. The two mecha entered the middle of the canyon. Inside the canyon, there were occasionally flashes of electricity as well as sounds of jamming static. The opposing mecha were separated by a distance of 500 meters. There was only a single path in the canyon which didn't contain too many obstacles. Thus, both sides immediately knew each other's positions. Wang Zheng advanced directly. The War God Number 1's long-range attacks were too weak. The attacks of the laser guns had to be used within 100 meters to be lethal. Shadow Executioner Mk3 revved its engine and also advanced directly. Although the Shadow of Atlantis was strong, he was also cunning. Even with the built-in aim assist, the Atlantis mech would still encounter difficulty in hitting Skeleton due to his movement. But then again, one would only feel real pleasure in close combat. Given Shadow Executioner Mk3's mech advantage, overwhelming Skeleton was only a matter of time. After that, he would use the Atlantis ability, Afterimage Kill, to close out the match. The Shadow Pope would be known through court. If Skeleton wasn't well known, there would still be a way to limit his name, but now that Skeleton was well known, those who didn't like him would have to find him and settle their grievances themselves. The distance between the two mecha closed quickly. 300 meters, 200 meters, suddenly, the Shadow Executioner Mk3 fired. If the shot didn't hit, it would still suppress the enemy. It also allowed the Atlantean mech to probe and remember Skeleton's movement patterns. Mobile shooting, a type of shooting style meant to probe and suppress. However, Skeleton's movement patterns are inconsistent and erratic. This type of shooting does not pose a threat. Young Deer was professional in his explanation. In the blink of an eye, he could recognize the tricks both parties used. Yes, but the scary part about Shadow Executioner Mk3 is not its ranged attacks but rather the sudden strikes from its melee attacks, especially the Afterimage Kill, Atlantis' highly lethal ability. The War God Number 1 is brittle, so Skeleton has to be careful, Bubbly Foam added. She was very experienced on the strengths of the Shadow Executioner Mk3. Bubbly Foam had a high amount of faith in Skeleton. However, Shadow of Atlantis was one of the most reputable in the cheater tier. His reputation was even more notorious than the king's, so it made people uneasy. We must believe in Skeleton. Whatever Afterimage Kill is, it'll definitely be useless when used against Skeleton. Old Deer's trash-talking techniques became more sophisticated. This was raising Skeleton up high so that his fall would be greater. The audience had good powers of observation, so the chat inside the channel was condemning him. There were voices supporting Young Deer, but most of the audience members were Skeleton supporters. Some were more rational, performing their analysis from a more technical level. Some were worried that the chance of Skeleton's War God Number 1 winning was very low. The worst and most brittle War God Number 1 was going up against the Super Mech Shadow Executioner Mk3. There were too many factors in play. Based on technical analysis, there were no shortcomings for the Atlantean mecha performance-wise, and the Shadow Executioner Mk3 had an endless stream of abilities. Although it's straightforward and blunt, the truth can often be cruel. Everyone has witnessed Swiss Army knife's attack against the Afterimage Kill, but they still got blown up. That ability is impossible to defend against, and looking at the War God Number 1's defense, it's no different from having paper for armor. The voices of the intellectuals in the channel occupied half of the chat. The mecha were getting closer, 100 meters. The War God Number 1 fired its laser gun. Skeleton's shots look good. Could it be 3 shots 3 hits? But, I'm fascinated at how the Atlantean skillfully adjusted his movement path. It is too captivating, and he used his movements much better than Skeleton. Both of young Deer's eyes lit up and became absorbed in the battle. Skeleton's shots had missed. Atlantean's mech corrections in CT were considered to be an invincible bug. He might have actually just been toying with Skeleton. After his 3 shots were dodged, Wang Jun didn't shoot anymore. The distance was closing into 50 meters. The Shadow Executioner Mk3 belched out a stifled tongue of flame, its rhythm getting faster and faster. Quick and fluid shooting, the transition of its rhythm was smooth. It was almost the same level as the Kings of Court. Skeleton is under a lot of pressure, it's difficult to dodge. On the other side, Shadow of Atlantis is feeling relaxed. His movements were fluid as flowing water, and they could only be described as comfortable. Old Deer burst out laughing. It was just like getting a massage. Would Skeleton be able to create a miracle this time? Haha. How could there be so many miracles? Once, twice, perhaps even thrice? Maybe it worked on the Kings, but against a bug-tier player, would he finally meet his match? Once the Shadow Executioner Mk3 got closer, the War God #1 would be doomed. Afterimage Kill was able to overpower Swiss Army Knife when used against him. What was a War God #1 compared to it? Getting closer, young Deer was totally absorbed in the battle. The Shadow Executioner Mk3 suddenly increased its speed and got a hold of the War God #1's flank. A flash and a laser sword slashed downwards in a cutting motion. Painstakingly met with force. What did I just witness? Atos's high-speed stabbing. A burst of acceleration. This rhythm of battle is just over the top. Even the professional league's top-level players could not execute such a play. This is a visual feast of high-level skills. Let us relish in it, Old Deer shouted with glee as if he were Shadow of Atlantis himself. I really want to beat him up. This Old Deer is impervious to criticism. You wouldn't understand what is going on in Old Deer's head. Young Deer completely disregarded these comments. Another freakish explosion happened. Misa's Angel Linebreaker. It is said that in the entire solar system, not more than 10 people are able to use this ability. It is impossible to block this ability's polylines, as well as its arcs. How is Skeleton going to escape this? Oh, this is really a shame. Oh, it looks like Skeleton's reactions were quick enough. He made a very exquisite, albeit slightly ugly movement, but at least he escaped with his life. But the Shadow Executioner Mk3 is just getting started. It gave another burst of acceleration and attacked repeatedly with Otto's high-speed stabbing, using it not once but twice. A high skill cap application of repeated Otto's high-speed stabbing. I am totally blown away, this is too wonderful. Channel 1 was filled with cries of surprise. F***CK. Was this guy even human? Under normal circumstances, people who were able to display such feats of ability were considered to be nearly gods of war. However, the Atlantis mech was indeed such an unbelievable bug within court. With just a short, clumsy movement, this feat was performed easily. It looked as if he was a warlord with 1,000 years of battle experience. Old trash-talking Deer became very excited. This was it didn't matter if it was bug, the end result would be final. And at this moment, his mood became vicious. He was going to unleash some toxic commentary. Oh, poor Skeleton. I believe he will only last another 3 more minutes at best, so let us start praying for him. Young Deer's voice was also inside the channel. Come to think of it, it was because Young Deer was so insistent on Skeleton that he had more to say compared to the past. As a thoroughly vicious character, he had strangely attracted a large fanbase. But most of the channel comments were insults. F***CK. This is shameless, too shameless. Have you no morals, Shadow of Atlantis? More like Atlantis without morals. What pride is there in using a bug? If you're so good, then switch to another mech, you piece of trash. Oh, right, inside Shadow of Atlantis's self-introduction page, there was a part that said, I didn't display to everyone my personality before, but now is the perfect time to share with everyone. Young Deer laughed. With the press of a finger, words appeared inside the channel. There will always be people who bark a lot at me to use other mecha if I have the ability. F***CKU. Why would I want to change my mech? I was born with noble blood, unlike you commoners. If I'm given the ability to pilot the Atlantean mech, Why wouldn't I? Do you really think that my brain is as stupid as you folks? If you are so capable, then you should use it too. I don't mind at all, really. If you're not capable at all, then please don't bark. And if you do choose to bark, at least try to sound like it. Come, bark a few times for this lord to hear. Who knows, if I like your barking, I might even consider changing the mech. How does the Shadow Executioner MKIV sound? Ha ha ha, fools. You better start worshipping me, I am an invincible legend. Boom. There was an explosion in the channel. We've seen arrogance, but we've never seen such disgusting arrogance. Calling yourself invincible on top of using a bug. At this moment, the skeleton core erupted. Voices overwhelmed the channel, saying, "Skeleton, destroy this dog of a person. Skeleton boss. Kill him. Let this Atlantis dog of mixed blood learn some proper manners. Believe in Skeleton and you will live forever." There was shouting as well as radical anger. Young Deer had infuriated the followers of the Skeleton Core. Young Deer laughed even harder. He originally wanted to change his tactics in trash-talking Skeleton to give it a bit more depth and prolong the battle, but it seemed like this was no longer required. Good bug of Shadow of Atlantis. A nice slogan. It looks full of ideals but is actually empty in reality, just like a skeleton. Looks like within this short time, our skeleton has become worse, which is a little disappointing. The Shadow Executioner MK3 has not even used the afterimage kill, but it seems like Skeleton is already surrounded by perils. But I wish to see Skeleton counterattack soon. He just can't keep receiving hits, it'll be too embarrassing. This commentary had become a game for Old Deer, and he had completely lost it. Bubbly Foam held her tongue and clenched her fist. Although she was secretly supportive of Skeleton, when it came to bickering, Old Deer was absolutely invincible. But Bubbly Foam's serious attitude excited the male audience. "Skeleton, destroy the bug for our goddess." Rainbow roared, "Bubbly Foam is mine." The wolves growled, "Little red noob, you better scram. Protect yourself from Rainbow." Even heroes could not fight alone against a gang of wolves. "Stop it, Rainbow, continue howling, as long the goddess was his, nothing else mattered." The Shadow Executioner MK3 went all out and unleashed all of its abilities. In this huge battle, he had easily displayed with perfection all the mech's technologies with a successive chain of explosive abilities. Super disorientating step, Hugh's momentum slash, Agatha's swallow counterattack. Anyone able to use such techniques would be considered an ace. At this moment, Shadow of Atlantis was using each of them in rapid succession. The audience could not believe what they were seeing. However, the War God #1 displayed the same defensive skills seen in his previous lunar battle, constantly staying on the defensive, resisting and blocking attack after attack. This so-called skeleton god is surrounded. Will he counterattack already? You've already made me use a lot of force, little skeleton friend. A sharp voice came out from the screen. Shadow of Atlantis spoke with a chuckle. Obviously, bringing out all the legendary big moves was completely pressure-free. "Screw off. You're just a bug. He, though I can't hear, I'm guessing 9 of 10 people in the live channel are scolding me. Never mind, they will start to admire me very soon." Bullshit, your brain was eaten by bugs. I would rather admire a dog than admire you. Alright, let's stop playing. What was the move of the Moonstorm Girl last time? The one that got stopped by 81 swords? I will just do an updated version. Let's see if this skeleton kid can stop it. Bang! The Shadow Executioner MK3 suddenly retreated, then moved into a stabbing pose. After a short pause, he followed up like a heavy storm. After a thump, the Shadow Executioner MK3 turned into a flash of silver lightning without any warning. This was an improvement to Lady Stormsword's attack. She needed a ready position to charge the power, but the Shadow Executioner MK3 lashed out directly. Lady Stormsword's Song of the Storm. Moreover, besides circular movements, he added in broken line movements, so the movements became even more unpredictable. It was like multiple Shadow Executioner MKIIs had appeared at the same time and surrounded the War God #1, stabbing and hitting. 16 combo, 25 combo, 36 combo, 49 combo, 81 combo. He had reached the highest record of Lady Stormsword. Even for Lady Stormsword, she would have been reached the end of her tether here. However, The Shadow Executioner MK3 survived through it easily and continued to combo hit. 108 combo, 121 combo. He could continue to combo hit, because normal pilots would have some changes to their mental focus as well as a physical burden. However, the Shadow Executioner MK3 didn't have to worry about that. As long as he had the strength to make the movements, he could hit an unlimited number of combos. As for mental strength, that was the only advantage of Shadow of Atlantis. All perverts have strong hearts. Old trash-talking deer almost burst into tears. This was what he had been waiting for years, and he started shouting, "Skeleton is losing." Even if Skeleton is the true god, he can't stand these unlimited combo hits. Kill him, go. Rainbow couldn't help but say, "Damn, I wanna kill him instead." Brother Rainbow, tell me when you wanna go, let's go together. My bro is from Beijing. I will ask him to get us a box of dried deer penises. Everyone was stunned. That was pretty hardcore. Some were waiting for a miracle, but some were waiting for the end. Quite a few people in the channel started to lean more towards the Shadow Executioner. MK3. So far, Skeleton could still resist the infinite Song of the Storm. However, Shadow of Atlantis hadn't used the afterimage kill yet, and Skeleton definitely couldn't take that movement. Shadow of Atlantis was clearly scheming. He would weaken Skeleton by hitting unlimited combos, then he would finish him off. A bowl could only hold a bowl of water, not even one drop more. If he used afterimage kill at the final moment, the spent Skeleton was doomed to lose. Damn, if Skeleton was using any other mech, even just the War God number 2, he could win easily, someone in the Skeleton Corps shouted. The crowd could only suppress themselves when facing a bug. Yao Ailun roared, "What are you afraid of? Our Skeleton boss hasn't started to attack yet. No matter how strong his opponent is, Skeleton boss just needs one killing blow." Young Chen Shu also shouted, "Skeleton will certainly win, we need to have confidence together. Skeleton will certainly win, if he loses, I will livestream myself eating milk boxes." Yan Xiaoshu came out. Unlike others, he knew that Skeleton was Wang Zheng himself, so he had a lot of confidence. If anything happened, he would drag his boss to eat milk boxes with him. At the CT Asia headquarters, Solon still remained quiet. The staff was bustling around but not making any comments due to Solon's plan. They didn't know why their boss loved taking risks so much. "Boss, what if Skeleton loses, shall we?" A trusted worker came over and reminded Solon. Though it was not good to be bound together with Skeleton forever, the Asian area got turned around, and the people hadn't been so happy in a long time. However, if Skeleton lost, would they be bound together for ill too? The investment was so huge, and it turned out like this. They were very likely to take a great responsibility. And Skeleton, his identity wasn't clear at all, so he could get away easily. Get out. Solon's eyes could kill people. How could a man of great ambition not have some determination? He calmed down a little bit. Solon was very clear that he was being adventurous this time, but he had no other options. The stronger Skeleton became, the clearer he realized a master like Skeleton wouldn't stay in CT for long. And without Skeleton, his position in CT would plummet too, and what he wanted was to leave as much of a legend as possible. The number of online users of Chanel 30001 had hit 541,252, which was amazing. Unbelievable. Prince was one of them. He shook his head and looked intently. Even pros couldn't restrain the ability of the Atlantean mech, and this was the reason why professional games banned the use of Atlantean mecha. This was a totally unfair battle. He really didn't understand why Skeleton had accepted it. The Shadow Executioner MK3 is unbeatable now. Moreover, afterimage kill isn't something the War God number 1 can handle. Merciless King smirked and replied to the prince in the public channel. The king's words were louder than 10 young deers. The bustling young deer also noticed the king's words. Bubbly Foam, I heard that you are a fan of Skeleton. What's your opinion here? Do you still think Skeleton can win? Bubbly Foam blinked. No one knows the result until the last second. Really, shall we make a bet? If Skeleton wins, I will eat another milk box, young deer said. Suddenly, the crowd was lit. The chance was so rare. Everyone was desperately wanting to see young deer eat milk boxes, but this guy was very cunning, so he wouldn't make a promise easily. But if Skeleton loses, you have to go on a date with me. Old Deer revealed his real thought, as expected. I'm not going on a date with you. But if Skeleton loses, I will eat 2 milk boxes. Bubbly Foam had a determined look in her eyes. A true heroine. Goddess Bubbly Foam, we support you. Old Deer, you can go kill yourself. Goddess Bubbly Foam is the best. Rainbow also got shocked. The freaking Old Deer was looking for it. Skeleton boss, please win. If his girlfriend ate 2 milk boxes, she would get sent to the hospital. Shadow of Atlantis Song of the Storm had already unleashed 181 attacks. This was more than 2 full sets of the Song of the Storm. The worst part was that he was still absolutely stable as a machine. However, Skeleton was doing pretty good at defending, and he didn't seem like he was under too much pressure. Lil Skeleton is not bad. This move must be familiar to you. Moon People's moves are garbage. Now you can go boast to your friends that you withstood one. You will face Atlantis speciality next. Shadow of Atlantis's voice came out from the screen again. Shadow of Atlantis was the one who needed a rest. Although unlimited combos was achievable, for a chubby and clumsy guy like him, the physical restriction was there. The Song of the Storm was not to be looked down upon. The longer he executed it, the higher it demanded of him in terms of physical strength. Even with the help of the Shadow Executioner MK3, the physical exertion was intense. In the channel, so many people were cursing. There was no lack of experienced ones, so how could they not notice this? Old Deer was stunned for a second, and he secretly wiped his sweat. Damn, hope he didn't choke. Is his physical strength that bad? Just at this moment, Shadow of Atlantis bust out suddenly, and his mech became a blur. Afterimage kill. All is fair in war. Shadow of Atlantis suddenly started the afterimage kill, so 2 Shadow Executioner MKEs are rushing towards Skeleton directly. Old Deer was very professional, so he carried on with the narration. Shadow of Atlantis had finally played his trump card. A chorus of boos rang out in the channel, saying he needed a break and had started a sneak attack. Everyone was nervous. Against the afterimage kill, even a defense with no dead angles couldn't hold it back. No matter how you defend, it was just a chance for the Shadow Executioner MK3 to show off. 2 Shadow Executioner MKIs changed positions wildly, the mech blurring between deception and reality. One on the left and one on the right, rushing towards War God number 1. As Swiss Army knife had proved, even the fake one held aggressive power as well. Moreover, the real one and the Phantom were changing positions strangely. This was the specialty of Shadow of Atlantis, and it was impossible to defend against it effectively. Even if one thought it was the real one, it could have swapped places and turned into a fake the next second. If one thought it was fake, the next second it could be the real mech. No one could explain why and how it was achieved, and Atlantis, of course, wouldn't let out their own secrets. If one did not know the principle, they could not defeat it. It's over. Looking at this dreamy assassination move, Old Deer heaved a sigh of relief. This was an unbreakable move, and it was so neatly done. This is a victory for Atlantis. Boom. The War God number 1 reached out his left arm and parried one of the Shadow Executioner MK3's hits. Parry, naive. This move was unbreakable, Old Deer ridiculed in his heart. Trying to parry was just stupid, but after all, in front of this move, the only thing one could do was wait for their death, as running wasn't a solution. This was the most scary part of afterimage kill. The afterimage was faster than any other mech. There was really no solution, but, in the whole galaxy, Atlantis wasn't unbeatable. Boom. The left arm of the War God number 1 suddenly automatically broke away and flew towards the Shadow Executioner MK3 on the left side. Simultaneously, like a lightning flash, the right leg of the War God number 1 was kicked to the side. The Shadow Executioner MK3 got kicked away heavily from the right side. Even though the Shadow Executioner MK3 released lines of energy radiance and seemed unbeatable, it had only annihilated the left arm of War God number 1 and not the main body. What? Old Deer had just opened a box of milk and took a sip of it when he spouted that out. What the hell? The unbeatable afterimage kill just got defeated like that. The afterimage kill was stopped by one broken arm? At this moment, Wang Jun was laughing. That trick had created an impact. The others may not have understood what happened, but he himself was very clear. The peculiar thing about the Atlantis mech was that when it was expending its energy, it was unable to defend itself. Although the Shadow Executioner Mk3 illusion looked exactly like the real thing, it was still only made out of energy. If a wrong judgment was made and the mech's armor was used to block the attacks, then the energy would erode the armor and render it useless. In simple terms, treat the illusions as if they were just guided missiles. Due to having used one of the mech's arms to absorb the energy of the attack, the fighting capabilities of the main body were mostly kept intact. But then again, this was because the War God number 1 was too weak. Other mecha would have been able to counter the attacks with a more efficient method. To those who didn't know how to tell the illusions apart, this seemed like an incredible feat. But once the principles were understood, all the pilot had to do was position himself correctly and block as per normal. It may have looked like magic, but it was just this simple. Just like theory of relativity, some theories were considered highly profound a few thousand years ago, and those who understood them were called geniuses. But in modern times, these theories were taught in primary school textbooks and were well understood by school kids. Old Deer was stunned. He felt as though his heart had stopped beating. The attack was broken just like that. Could Skeleton be in the midst of creating yet another miracle? Wrong. Old Deer shouted loudly. It disappeared. The Shadow Executioner Mk3 disappeared, completely disappeared. After Skeleton sent the Shadow Executioner Mk3 flying with a kick, the Atlantean mech disappeared without a trace upon landing. This was not an optical illusion. The Atlantean mech had completely disappeared. The sensor instruments, the naked eye, radar scanning, and all other means of detection could not find the mech at all. It was as if it had disappeared into a vacuum in an instant, only the buzzing sound of the electromagnetic field remained. One of Atlantis's ultimate abilities, stealth, holy F***ck, he actually managed to pull it off? Within Channel 1 there were a lot of Atlantis fans, and it was now that they erupted with cheers. The Shadow Executioner Mk3 can remain in stealth for 10 seconds, and only when it attacks will its stealth be broken. This is too much of a bug, isn't it? Someone quipped in the channel after quickly pulling up the mech's data. Young Deer was burning with passion again. To think that Shadow of Atlantis actually had such an ability, this was even more vicious than afterimage kill. Against this stealth ability, Skeleton has stopped moving. Has he given up, or is he trying to detect his opponent via hearing? To be honest, this isn't a battle between humans. Moreover, this is a battlefield. There is electromagnetic noise everywhere. 10 seconds is enough to change a living skeleton into a dead skeleton. Young Deer shouted passionately. From a certain perspective, he was a good commentator. With one shout, the number of VIP viewers increased by tens of thousands at this critical moment. The live broadcast corner gave a special close-up. At the moment Young Deer was shouting, the War God number 1's right arm swung its alloy knife. The knife slammed into an empty slope. A spark lit up in the middle of nothing. The alloy knife impacted at the exact same moment that the Shadow Executioner Mk3's pilot cockpit appeared. The force of the impact sent the Atlantean mech flying backwards, and it was nailed to the slope by the alloy knife. It was as if time had stopped. The people could see the pilot inside the Atlantean mech staring with his eyes wide open. Boom. Skeleton win. The entire Channel 1 was silent. No one made a sound. Everyone was silently staring at the Shadow Executioner Mk3 that was pinned on the slope. Skeleton had won just like that? The Atlantis mech was broken just like that? With just a light swing of the knife? Afterimage kill had laid waste to one of the War God number 1's arm, but afterimage kill as well as the other deadly abilities were defeated by just this one swing of the knife? This difference in power was just too big. This was a bug after all, and an Atlantean mech on top of that. The kings stopped speaking and looked at each other in disbelief. Had it been them in that battle using their own mecha and having to face a stealth opponent with such a strong attack, they might not even had a slim chance of victory. To be able to skillfully counter this situation was beyond the capabilities of the pilots. This was the strength of the Atlantean mech. In that moment, a pilot would only be able to hear the sound of his own heartbeat. However, Skeleton executed that slash with confidence. This was the feeling of despair. Members of the Skeleton Corps, you can rejoice now, passionate believers of Skeleton. Bubbly Foam shouted, containing her excitement. But this created an electrifying effect, and her wearing the female police mecha pilot uniform caused the entire Channel 1 to go crazy with excitement. At this moment, the channel guide gave the skeleton core an order. The entire channel was filled with the sound of cheering. Yao Ailun gave a shout. Invincible skeleton. What followed was a buzzing sound. There were too many people in the channel, so it caused a frequency explosion. Bubbly Foam had calmed down. Although suppressing her excitement, she spoke very quickly. Let me interview the skeleton core. The voice that we are hearing now is the voice of their army administrator. Regarding this battle, what are everyone's thoughts on it? Our skeleton core never had any doubts. Yao Ailun's voice was sacred and full of glory. The skeleton core started their war cry and responded with "Not afraid," a group of men singing "Not afraid." There were a few people whose voices went off key, but it was full of gusto, so you could feel their spirit. The soft voice of Rainbow interjected at this moment. When pitted against the winds and waves, who wouldn't be afraid? When faced against a bug, who wouldn't feel hate? But if you join the skeleton army, we'll accompany you against the wind and waves, we'll be with you in battle till the end, we'll shield each other till the end. Shield, shield, shield. This is the spirit that skeleton gave us. Who cares what bug you are? Come, brothers of the skeleton core. Together our brothers will let the others know that the skeleton core is the greatest bug of CT. Bubbly Foam's mood darkened. This advertisement was too straightforward, too blunt. Although they both had a good relationship, this was not allowed in court. Haha. Okay, that was the end of the interview. Next up, let us interview Student Skeleton. Oh, hold on, the connection needs some time. Rainbow got distracted. Inside the core channel there was an burst of laughter. Rainbow, Bubbly Foam is not rejecting you. What happened? Was there a disagreement between the both of you? Do you want us to help mediate the situation? Rainbow shrugged. The words went in one ear and came out the other. He went with the flow as long as everyone was happy. This was a small price to pay for captivating the goddess. The world needed peace after all. Hello, everyone, a calm voice sounded. It's Skeleton God, oh. It was all the same inside the channel. Flowers were flooding the entire channel. From small flowers that were free to various sizes of bouquets that had to be paid for. Student Skeleton, it must have been tough on you. Faced with a bug-tier opponent just now, how did you even manage to pull that off? I was talking about the last slash, no, the entire match. It was so exciting. Are you tired? You still have another battle to go. Skeleton sounded stunned. The mech just now was an opponent? I thought it was an AI to warm up with. Wang Jung indeed felt that the opponent just now was a little strange. It repeated its strikes and it also repeated its attack strength. Boom! The entire channel 1 went crazy. The entire screen was filled with laughter. Atlantean mech, bug tier attack after attack, infinite song of the storm, after image kill. Ultimate ability of 10 seconds of stealth. What were Skeleton's thoughts on these? An onomatopoeia word. In this age of internet and social media, what could be more hurtful than, One of the worst feelings in the world, the opponent regarding you as a brainless AI. Bubbly Foam ended her interview happily. Skeleton was a little toxic this time, but it was fine. Everyone loved a little trash talking every now and then, so what if it was an Atlantean mech? It still had to bow down to the victor. Wang Jung honestly wasn't being toxic at all. In reality, he was merely disappointed in his opponent. Against a good opponent, he would be able to gain valuable experience and battle energy. But these kinds of battles had no value in them. They were merely a waste of time. Inside the CT Asia office, Solon was holding back his laughter. He turned around to his subordinates and started yelling, "There is still a second game. Make sure the other party is online and ready. The next battle will start in 30 minutes. This second battle was a risk to Solon. In the business world, taking advantage of the break-in between battles for advertisement broadcasting was a profitable move. But the more one-sided trashing a game was, the more uneasy it made him feel. But then again, he was already very fortunate to be in this current position. What could he use to make Skeleton stay? Solon racked his brain. A beautiful girl, money, and what else? Suddenly, Solon's mind clicked. Everyone had ignored the most important thing. What would a person who used the war god #1 desire? The answer was simple, a strong opponent. The advertisement was already broadcasting within Channel 1. Skeleton still has his second battle to go. Please look forward to this mysterious debut challenger. There was still a second battle, moreover, a mysterious debut challenger. Was there someone more powerful than this Atlantean player? Inside the channel, the people paying for the fees were getting even more. It immediately broke the 5 million mark. Needless to say, it was well worth it. Atlantis Bugmech was destroyed. Skeleton's comment about the opponent being akin to an AI and having repetitive movements, it was too exciting. These sorts of feelings were better than watching the highest level of the professional league. Atlantis would not see themselves playing in the professional league. Wang Jung had waited for half an hour inside the cockpit, but he had not received the signal for the start of the second battle. Little Sue, didn't they say that it was 2 battles? Wang Jung directly contacted Yan Xiaoshu. Yan Xiaoshu, who was just speaking to Solon, was stunned. Boss, don't you need to rest? It is fine, that was just a warm-up. Hopefully the second opponent will be stronger. Wang Jung really felt that the previous opponent was like an AI. He was ferocious, but the moves were too repetitive. Wang Jung only used his standard way of defending and was considered invincible. He was a little disappointed. The fighting energy in his chest did not increase even a little, but then again, he was lucky that it was not reduced. Yan Xiaoshu rolled his eyes in shock. He was totally in awe. Wang Jung actually regarded a battle with that level of combat as a warm-up. Got it, I'll make the arrangements at once. Solon contacted Yan Xiaoshu directly. What, start the battle immediately? No way, the second opponent is no trivial matter, this should not be taken lightly, he yelled in disbelief. The second challenger, according to Solon's original plan, was not supposed to be accepted. This sort of opponent should have been left until the end. After all, through the professional analyses, one could actually see that Skeleton was growing through the battles. If he faced an opponent like this in the future, he would have a better chance to win. But having a battle with him now, the risk was huge. However, the opponent had great influence. Moreover, inside CT, people who didn't like Skeleton got involved. Thus he had to take this challenge. Yan Xiaoshu shook his head. Don't worry, he should build on his progress. As long as the opponent is ready, he will go fight. Solon had no choice. In this collaboration with Skeleton, the counterpart was the one who had the initiative, so he could only give advice but not force him. If his counterpart stopped collaborating with him, he would be screwed, so he had to agree to anything. In CT, the advertisements were going full on. Skeleton was ready for the second challenge with no rest. Fight till the end. Channel 1 was in heat. Was Skeleton about to fight against the mysterious, strong opponent? The heck, who could be so great? More people flushed into Channel 1. They might have missed out on the first battle, but they still had the second battle to watch. The passion in the crowd broke out, and some viewers who usually preferred free shows started to pay to view it as well. Those who liked the free shows didn't lack money, it was just because they didn't feel the atmosphere. Once the game started to heat up, they didn't care about money anymore. The advantage of pay-per-view was that the picture would be clearer, which gave the audience an immersive sense, like they were fighting the battle too. God, we broke the record again. Over 6 million people, what a miracle, people started to exclaim in the hall. Solon let out a sigh of relief. Even a hot streak of top professional league players could only hit such a number of audience members. No one could deny him of this outstanding achievement. Weird, Bubbly Foam's combat uniform looks so familiar. Suddenly, Yao Ailun blinked. A jack of all trades like him knew everything in the world, including the badge on the uniform. Sister Rainbow, isn't that the badge of your SWAT team? D*MN. You animal, how could you move so fast? Oi! You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Our relationship is innocent. Bubbly Foam was there for advertising, and she conveniently had a meal there. The smile on Rainbow's face was too evil. Anyone could see the goof at a glance. Talking about romance over the meal? That caused a wave of criticism inside the Skeleton Corps. I assume they didn't reach the level of snuggling, so you guys still have a chance. Don't let Sister Rainbow succeed. Chen Shu was jealous inside. If he wasn't underage, he would have some romance with the goddess. It's useless, bubbly foam likes mature men like me. Once I get together with bubbly foam, I can give some dating advice to the people who bless us, Rainbow boldly promised. Brother Rainbow, blessings to you and bubbly foam. Someone from the Bachelor team instantly betrayed them. Skeleton unexpectedly prevailed over Atlantis' stealth ability, so everyone was relaxed after such an amazing battle. The information for second battle began to publish. To everyone's surprise, it was in a video form with pretty cool editing too. Boom! The strongest challenger so far has appeared. A low and seditious voice followed by a subtitle, "A man from Mars." Boom, the strongest king. He is free-spirited, chic, and handsome, and he makes the women scream. Then a cut in the video. Countless beautiful female fans appeared in the picture, screaming, "I want to bear your child." He is no doubt the greatest, and with the least battles, he rushed to become a king of Mars. He is known as the godlike man. Then another cut, and a familiar face appeared in the screen. He was a well-known Mars player. He is one of the opponents I least want to face. When fighting, once you let him take a glimmer of the upper hand, there is no suspense, and he will let you feel helpless against his unstoppable momentum. The picture changed. Another well-known player appeared. His style is too violent, and no one else can copy that. One by one, faces flashed past. All of them were masters, and everyone gave a very high evaluation. He is the Flame Ronin. From Mars, the most violent style, the least number of battles to achieve the title of king. This man is about to challenge Skeleton. Two bright red characters appeared on the screen. The picture turned dark, then the music slowly started playing. Flash, the video lit up. It was one of Flame Ronin's fighting videos. The opponent was the Solar System's best solo king contest champion, Sala Little Prince. Sala Little Prince was famous for his performance in solo. Of course, the mech he used would not be conventional. The Red B-32, a modified mech which would obviously be banned in the official game's armory. The 32 in its name referred to 32 modifications. Bang! Strong rock music started playing. The pounding drums were like beating on the heart. In the channel, everyone's breathing increased in speed. The Red B-32's degree of bugness, although not as high as the Atlantean mech, was still hard to deal with. The best solo king was naturally not just about the techniques. Only the strongest could be known as the best. It's a bit like a no-rules fight. One could be barefoot, or they could also carry a machete. Of course, the only exception was that one could not use a gun. How could using guns be called fighting? So mecha like the Atlantean that allowed people fight without techniques still need to be banned. How could Flame Ronin's Flaming Mountain 5th generation deal with the best solo king's Red B-32? Depending on the time the video was released, it obviously was not a fierce battle. Boom! The battle began. The Flaming Mountain 5th generation directly suppressed the opponent with a burning laser knife, crazily slashing with the fire scattering everywhere. That laser knife is an exclusive weapon, the blazing knife. In the whole Milky Way, in the whole CT, this is the only one, and it was a symbol of glory. The screen flashed, and the Red B-32's pilot, strongly controlling the mech, escaped from the Flaming Mountain 5th generation's suppression. However, when he was about to fight back, the Flaming Mountain 5th generation suddenly rushed towards the Red B-32, preventing a counter-attack. The Flaming Mountain 5th generation's knife suddenly started rotating with fire spewing out in every direction, turning into a fire hurricane. The screen flashed again, and the exclusive blazing knife in the hand of the Flaming Mountain 5th generation continuously rotated along with the mech into a vortex of flame. The energy distorted the surrounding air and the space became blurred. Then boom, a flaming lance flew out of the blazing knife. The screen flashed, Red B-32 got smashed. The video screen turned black. What was that flaming lance in the last shot? The Red B-32 was directly smashed. Did the blazing knife fly out? But when screen turned back on, the audience could see that the blazing knife was still in the hand of the Flaming Mountain 5th generation, still rotating and creating a fiery vortex. Friend Skeleton had really attracted challenges from the strongest kings. Not only just those from Earth, but from Mars. He fought with Lady Stormsword from the moon before, and then solved the unsolvable bug Atlantean mech, And now he was facing Mars' strongest man. This was truly the highest point of the Skeleton Corpse feast. This person came with bad intentions. He is most likely the last wave of the Mars expedition to Earth. Bubbly Foam took the lead in narration this time. Well, yes. Young Deer's voice was like that of a puppet. The people in the channel just left him alone this time. The old trash-talking deer was best left alone. People were busy talking about the level of the Mars Kings. It was just that the video was truly amazing. If they didn't understand it wrongly, they just saw a big move that required a mech tactic combined with energy release. It was different from firing a laser. As long as one could understand the shooting rhythm of the opponent, there was a way to dodge it. On the other hand, this move was much like the ancient legends where one used martial arts to kill the enemy, hitting the enemy at their vitals with nowhere to escape with a move like this. Having such a technique was like having a laser that could fire at any time and could hit any target. The mech was a living laser gun. Young Deer, are you alright? Bubbly Foam quipped. Sometimes she could be a little bad. Kiki, nothing, old disease recurrence. Comrade Old Deer's face was a little pale. There were many kinds of speculations. Generally, they considered it to be the effect of the blazing knife, but if one consulted the official guidebook of this exclusive weapon, the only specialty was that it could not be destroyed and nothing else. There was also a small number of people that said that it had some kind of magical ability that could be released from the mech. Flame Ronin's identity is not a secret. If you go to Mars CT forum and search, a description of his origin says he's from Mars Lie family. Mars Lie family's heritage originated from the colonial era of Mars. Until today, the Lies were still strong. When other families felt joy with the birth of a baby with ability X, it was normal for the Lie's direct descendants to have it. The mysterious Lie family caused a lot of people to fantasize about what would happen. When Skeleton clashed against this mysterious family, what kind of collision would it be? Of course, there were a lot of questioning voices, like how could aristocratic descendants from the Lie family wander around and play this game? More argued that this person just happened to have the surname of Lie, which was also a big name on Mars, and all of these individuals felt they had relatives in the real Lie family. Wang Zheng was ready. In the pre-war selection interface, War God number 1 was the choice. Solon was actually very nervous. If Skeleton won, the whole Asian region would have really made it. They beat the moon and also had the ability to suppress Mars. This would affect far more than just the Asian region. The entire Earth area would share this glory. But this was the strongest king of Mars. He was definitely not so easy to deal with. The only thing he could do was fight stubbornly and believe in Skeleton. Inside Channel 1, the topic turned to a dispute. What mech would the strongest king from Mars be using against Skeleton? A few factions were formed. The basic general type of the Conte Type 3 held the majority, but there was also a small number of people who thought that he would stick with the same War God number 1. He was the strongest king amongst the mighty kings of Mars. Such opponents would definitely be using the War God number 1 for their own dignity, so it was impossible to use other mech. The character of the Martians was very simple. Suddenly, the screen flashed. Flame Ronin directly entered the pre-war selection interface and simply said, I am here to win. I will use the Flaming Mountain 5th generation that I'm more familiar with. Hope you like it. Hong, his song of choice started playing, and Flame Ronin chose the Flaming Mountain 5th generation directly, a high-end mech. It was really rude. Inside Channel 1, numerous exclamations flooded the screen. He was really cheeky because he took such a big advantage so naturally, as if using a Flaming Mountain mech was to give the opponent face. What use was the dignity of this king? This was the home court of Earth, and no one wanted the Martians to show off in front of their house. Kings and scum were nothing. They wanted to see real strength. Yao Ailun shrugged. Meanwhile, the Skeleton Corps was calm. It did not matter what the opponent used. Previously, it was the Bright Moon 8.0, but in the end, the results were the same. Skeleton was invincible. One sentence. Wait for Skeleton's lethal blow. Skeleton, destroy this trash. Destroy everything. Destroy, destroy, destroy. All the opponent mecha are but fleeting. Rainbow shouted slogans like a hyped-up teenager, but then again, it helped to relieve some stress. SWAT team members were human after all. The shouting carried on and suddenly Rainbow boasted. I am going to be the top shouter in this channel. The king of the channel. This shouting is not good enough. Inside the channel, you had to fight for priority if you wanted to speak. If you wanted more priority, it would depend on your contributions as well as your social status. Fucking hell, little red noob is actually the nouveau riche that we despise the most. This nouveau riche dude, we have to be friends with him. Get lost. This is known as sincerity, understand? Rainbow took his time to counter. There were all sorts of insults, but most of them were made in goodwill and others were to diffuse the tension. The opponent this time was from the Lai family. Moreover, the moves in the video just now were very bizarre. On Earth, there was a 6-star luxury hotel that contained a professional-grade CT entertainment room. Inside the room was a man with a body like Michelangelo's David statue. This perfect man was smiling while smoking a cigar and 2 beautiful ladies were by his side. If a reporter were to enter right now, he would surely be shocked. These 2 beauties were of a high social background. One was a popular movie star, the other was the daughter of a real estate tycoon. These 2 ladies had a huge amount of funds at their disposal. Both of them were talented individuals. They were not just pretty faces. They both were full of charisma and could make any man attend to their beck and call. But at this moment, both of them were swooning over this man. More importantly, both of these ladies were either attached or married, so it was clear that both of them were totally obsessed with this man. This perfect man had the least amount of media exposure within the Mars King competition, but the most media exposure outside of it. He was the Flame Ronin. The device beside him was showing the live broadcast of Channel 1. He had watched the event. He was reading the criticism of his mech choice, the Flaming Mountain 5th generation. He then paid them no further attention. He merely laughed and put down the cigar in his hand. It is about to begin. Both of you, go play somewhere else for now. When I'm finished with this, I'll come join the both of you again. Both the ladies were in the midst of swooning over this man. They didn't mind that they had to share him. Moreover, they listened him like good dogs would. After a French kiss each, they obediently left. Flame Ronin's smile slowly disappeared. He was going into a state of war. The Mars expedition had just barely begun and they had already planted their position on Earth. Moreover, their focus fell on a single person. A debut? That was only a joke. In reality, he was actually curious about how strong Skeleton's war god number 1 was. The people on Earth had always been considered weak, but now there was the sudden appearance of this master. It would be a shame if he didn't check this out for himself, and he had nothing else to do anyway. He could also check out the ladies on Earth while he was at it. He had indeed been on Mars for quite some time. Honor and glory of a king? Pride of a master? These were totally not on his mind. Those things, were not what he was after. Originally, all he wanted was just to have fun and play around, something to occupy his time. The reason as to why he started playing CT was to charm a long-legged beauty. As time went on, he found this to be a good use of his time. In just a short time, he had fought his way up to the king position. He in fact didn't care about the king's title at all, but the problem was that no one was able to stop his rise. He just couldn't force himself to intentionally lose. Although it was a game, he still liked winning. Thus, the Flaming Mountain 5th generation mech that he was the most experienced with would be his choice. He would enjoy every bit of fun with Skeleton, but he would also take every chance he had to win the match. Before the battle, let us first interview the strongest king of Mars, Mr. Flame Ronin. May I ask, why did you pick the 5th generation Flaming Mountain? Was it because you watched the previous match and felt some pressure? What are your thoughts on Shadow of Atlantis? Bubbly Foam interviewed him with a smile. The prodigious son of Flame directly turned on the camera, his handsome face appearing on the video feed. Skeleton is pretty good, but am I feeling any pressure? You can tell it from the look of my face. And, oh, by the way, ladies, please view me from a 45-degree angle, you'll sure be in for a treat. Bubbly Foam held back the urge to roll her eyes. Mr. Ronin, you haven't answered my question. What are your thoughts on Shadow of Atlantis? I think this is a pretty good moment. Do we really need to discuss a nobody? A nobody will never be able to pose a threat to a real warrior. Moves also got to have style. Flame Ronin smiled, showing a perfect image of a perfect man. He was a player and a winner in life. Bubbly foam cut away the video feed. That's it, a wonderful time. Let us appreciate the great battle ahead, not the 45-degree angle. At this moment, the loading percentage of the screen increased. Boom. The image started to load. The battle had begun. Random map. Will's star, an abandoned mining star. The whole planet was rich in superconducting ores. However, due to overexploitation, the entire planet was on the verge of collapse. The volcanoes had erupted and caused magma to cover the whole planet. This was one of the after effects of human interstellar travel. It was akin to the pollution on Earth, but this was on a much more devastating scale. Skeleton. War God number 1 Flame Ronin, Flaming Mountain 5th generation. This mech possessed a whole complement of weapons. It could brawl in melee and it could fight at long ranges. It had the whole package. Whatever high-quality tools you could name, this mech had it. It was one thing to be wanton and unrestrained, but the worst was to totally disregard what others say. Whatever toxic comments others made, it was their business, and he did not care about them at all. As long as there were girls to chase, alcohol to drink, money to collect, life was good. That was all that mattered. Some considered this sort of character naive but also scary. When it came to underhanded comments, they were the best. But then again, one couldn't blame them, as what they did say were indeed facts. Although they totally did not care about how others perceived them, their explosive temper would be terrible when enraged. Both mecha appeared in the middle of a volcano. Where they stood on was a piece of floating ground surrounded by flowing magma. It was like a raft in a river, except the outer edges were constantly being disintegrated by the magma. On top of that, both pilots could feel the intense heat that was being generated. The Flaming Mountain 5th generation made the first move. Flame Ronin liked taking the initiative. Smiling, he quickly took up a position in the middle of the battlefield. This was a strong position. The battlefield's surroundings were full of magma, and to be cornered into it would result in a speedy death. In this magma environment which emitted extreme heat, the War God number 1 would have little impact. Moreover, the War God number 1 had poor combat capabilities in this environment compared to Flaming Mountain 5th generation. With specific modifications, the heat in the atmosphere was absorbed to generate extra power for Flaming Mountain 5th generation. It would have been fine it were just the environmental factors. However, this magma environment would further hinder the heat energy conversion. This could potentially be fatal at a critical moment during the battle. Having seized the middle of the battlefield, the Flaming Mountain 5th generation immediately started to attack, opening up with long-ranged fire. Flame Ronin has started firing. His shots look smooth. However, Skeleton has started to adapt and was able to dodge the shots easily. The Flaming Mountain 5th generation's long-range weapon is the Alpha Type 3 laser. This weapon might be a little cumbersome. And now to introduce the Flaming Mountain 5th generation mech. This is the 5th generation mech of Mars. It has balanced offensive and defensive capabilities, and it comes configured with a blazing knife. However, the knife that this mech has is an exclusive variant. It is the only one that is indestructible. Bubbly foam speedily read through the data in her hand. This was a conventional mech going up against a very prominent mech. Within the channel, experts on the Mars CT Circle appeared. The 9th Mars Individual Tournament Championship System rewards were given out recently. Flame Ronin wore a smile of confidence on his face. The Alpha Type 3 laser really was not able to force Skeleton into the magma. This was an unwieldy weapon. It was able to deliver a powerful shot, but it would result in a long recharge time. An expert opponent would be able to anticipate and take the appropriate counteractions. The reason as to why he chose to open up with long-ranged attacks even though they were ineffective was to warm up and become familiar with his opponent's movements. Interesting, there was no fixed movement pattern, no habits or standard movements were observed. It looked like this opponent was not just another run-of-the-mill production of Earth. The feeling that the War God number 1 gave him was that of an all-rounded individual who had no flaws. Flame Ronin discarded the Alpha Type 3. It would be fruitless even if he carried on firing. With the rev of an engine, he drew an energy blade from his waist. A beam of light flashed and a jet of flame spewed forth. The entire knife was engulfed in flame effects. This was the exclusive weapon that had indestructible flames. The confident smile on Flame Ronin's face disappeared. He had entered a state of intense focus, the calm before the storm. He was naturally gifted in close combat as though it were just a game. When he struck with his knife, the attacks had a certain quality to it. Shameless. It is fine if you're using Flaming Mountain 5th generation, but you also chose to bring out the exclusive indestructible blazing knife in this match. A strongest king. You are a strongest king. At least try winning with your abilities as a strongest king. Within the channel, the fans of CT started to holler. What was a strongest king? On every planet, there were only 10 such individuals of paramount strength who were known as kings. They were positions of pure glory. But Flame Ronin was subverting their understanding of this topic. Prince and the Merciless King both stopped speaking. They both chose to watch on silently, for if they spoke at this moment, the negative comments might fall upon them. To be able to acquire the title of a king showed that the person possessed good basic skills, but they were still not the saints that the fans expected them to be. When one was in combat, they'd have to go all out. Furthermore, only after a person had used the exclusive weapons would they truly understand that they were not as powerful as one would expect. It was more akin to a symbol of glory. The general consensus is that this exclusive weapon is comparable in performance to a standard laser sword, perhaps just slightly better. Furthermore, CT would never upset the issue of balance. For Flame Ronin to use this exclusive weapon shows how seriously he's taking Skeleton. Old Deer finally spoke. His voice was calm and without emotion, however, it hinted a feeling of him supporting Flame Ronin. Old Deer, would it kill you if you didn't speak? Old Deer, your mommy is calling you to go have dinner. Flame Ronin's goal was to win, not the glory of battle. He began his attacks on the war god number 1, the Ronin's 9 successive strikes. These successive strikes from the blazing knife carved lines of flames in the air. Skeleton, you must not parry those attacks. Bubbly Foam exclaimed loudly. She had just received new data on Flame Ronin. It was passed on to her by Solon. On the side, Comrade Old Deer started to smile after reading the data on Flame Ronin. He opened his mouth but closed it again immediately. He had said too much in the previous game, so he decided to keep his mouth shut this time. He decided to keep a low profile for this match and hope that everyone forgot what he had said in the previous match. Skeleton's next action left everyone's hearts pounding hard. The war god number 1 blocked directly with the alloy knife. No. The only specialty of the blazing knife was that it was unbreakable. Without the worry about harming his own knife, he could chop off the opponent's alloy knife. However, Skeleton obviously could not hear everyone's calls. He firmly blocked with his alloy knife. Buzz, however, the furious voices faded, and the second buzz sound of the hit rang up again. He successfully blocked. Sorry, as a Skeleton fan, I closed my eyes just now. Skeleton just blocked the blazing knife's cut with an alloy knife, and not once, twice, or 3 times, but 9 times, all strikes were blocked. Old Trash-Talking Deer looked quite disappointed. He understood what had happened in front of his eyes, technically in front of his ears. The buzzing sounds of the impacts obviously weren't normal. Skeleton wasn't actually using his alloy knife to directly block. Instead, he first diverted some of the force away with a parrying motion. At the moment the alloy knife diverted the blazing knife, it decreased the cutting power down to an acceptable range that an alloy knife could take, and only then did he try to block it. Amazing skills, just like the Bright Moon 8.0, these light mecha can deliver critical hits as well. The Flaming Mountain 5th generation, a light mech, can hit as hard as a heavy mech, but Skeleton's move could also be called taking a heavy mech's hit like a light hit. When he took the hit, there was a delicate diverting action that even high-end mecha couldn't do easily. Only with a war god number 1, only Skeleton can. Bubbly Foam clenched her fist. The 9 strikes almost knocked the war god number 1 out, causing him to fall onto the edge of the platform. One step behind was the lava river. Lai Guang's eyes shined. This skeleton was truly very interesting. He had just diverted and blocked his 9 successive strikes. Using the unique factor of his weapon, his favorite thing to do was to break the opponent's weapon, but this opponent was quite adept at protecting even his weapon. This person might have some ability. Lai Guang did not continue to attack. Instead, he moved into a defensive position. He wanted to see his opponent's move, because if he was a descendant of some famous family, he would surely recognize who he was. The war god number 1 made a move. The alloy knife lashed out. Strike after strike, every movement was exactly the same as what Flame Ronin just did, Ronin's 9 successive strikes. Lai Guang was shocked, and the blazing knife quickly blocked the attacks. Hong hong hong, solid cuts, cut after cut sliced against his blazing knife, and finally the explosive heavy hit. Each hit caused him to step backwards. Ronin backed off with 9 steps. He was startled. He knew his own moves most clearly. The opponent had not only copied the move but also the very essence of the move. Every strike cut in the same spot, and even though he was familiar with every strike of the 9 successive strikes, he still got abruptly forced 9 steps back. It was completely imitated, and he had also learned it almost instantly. Damn, was this guy trying to hide his own skills? Who did he think he was? The war god #1 was once pushed to the edge of the lava, but now he fought back using the Ronin's 9 successive strikes, and Flaming Mountain 5th generation took 9 steps back. Skeleton then performed a godlike copy of his opponent's trick, an effortless attack. The Mars King does not look scared. He has raised the blazing knife, his exclusive weapon. It's a signature weapon because there's only one in all of CT. Bubbly Foam let out a sigh of relief. The war god #1's parry and counterattack had just happened in a few moments. Her little heart was still pumping a little fast, as it was just too exciting. The alloy knife had not only blocked an exclusive weapon but also counterattacked. Clearly, every blow was special, as Skeleton did not seem afraid of the blazing knife's effect. Prince and the Merciless King were in a private chat at this time. This has gone beyond the level of superficial techniques, and only a master can understand this skill. It's not just techniques, behind every move there's a certain essence behind it. It's not a simple imitation. Otherwise, Ronin wouldn't have let him get away so easily. At this time, after a fight, the war god #1 and the Flaming Mountain 5th generation stood in place, confronting each other. It was merely a simple confrontation as time passed by bit by bit. In the channel, there were more than 6 million viewers, but no one issued an impatient call. They were all nervous, so nervous that it was hard to breathe. One can clearly feel that between the two mech, there is an aura that can't be detected by human eyes. It is not a delusion, it feels almost real. The two mecha are not just standing still, there are very subtle and small actions taking place, like a confrontation between two masters. This confrontation is the process to determine who will win. The fighting is just the result. The outcome after fighting depends mostly on the confrontation before the fight. Bubbly Foam's explanation was a bit stretched, but no one blamed her. Skeleton's and Ronin's fight was a bit difficult to cope with, especially when Old Gear was being old low profile. A lot of viewers from Mars had been connected to come to Channel 1, as they had received the news late. They heard that Ronin ran to Earth to play, but wasn't he just defeating a rookie? However, the people who liked Ronin liked to see games where noobs were stomped. High-end games were too depressing, as they not only required techniques, but also required the momentum and aura. Even the commentators were retired military pedants. Ronin came to abuse some Earth rookies, so of course they would come and have a blast. However, after coming in, they saw the deadly silent confrontation. Lai Guang's eyes became more and more dignified, and the mood of playing around completely disappeared. With the earnesty of going all out, his spirit collided against the emptiness between them. Watching Skeleton's body, he could not find any reason to make a move, and the opponent's mental state had pierced him several times. Every time it happened, it made him feel shivers down his spine. Obviously his opponent had found flaws in him. However, Skeleton didn't start attacking directly. Lai Guang frowned. The opponent's spirit made him feel that Skeleton ought to make the first move. Or was it just an illusion, or was his opponent looking down on him? Flaming Ronin's eyes sharpened up like an eagle's and he lowered his blazing knife. If there were no flaws, he would attack until Skeleton showed his flaws. Flaming Mountain 5th generation's engine transmitted power evenly to every joint of the mech. Boom! The whole Flaming Mountain 5th generation started spinning. In the twinkling of an eye, the blazing knife started to emit fire, and the whole Flaming Mountain 5th generation looked as though it had turned into a flame whirlwind. However, this was only a visual illusion. It was the high attack speed of the blazing knife that composed the whirlwind. The speed was so high so that it formed a whirlwind image, visually confusing the opponent while repressing their spirit. This was not just a physical attack, it had also incorporated a spiritual attack. The guests connected from Mars froze a moment. It was finally time, but Ronin wind and flame cut. But why this big move in the beginning? This trick was usually the ultimate skill of Flame Ronin, it was used to finish off an opponent. But now, directly after the confrontation, he charged the great move. The fans who were accustomed to Flame Ronin's usual romantic style got a bit shocked, but soon they started shouting in the channel. Earth people meet the horror of Mars Ronin, it's the end. In the skeleton core, Rainbow blinked. Why did these idiots suddenly start spontaneously shouting? Who knows? Yao Ailun pushed his glasses upwards. He had no time to care about why idiots had suddenly started shouting. His eyes stared at Skeleton's war god number 1. The Flame Ronins. This trick theoretically had a visual illusion. If Skeleton was not focused enough, he would definitely get caught. How would he deal with it? The alloy knife executed a hard block, followed by a high-speed parry. The flame whirlwind was just an illusion, so one should have treated it as an ordinary spinning slice. Skeleton parried blow after blow. Lai Guang's mood was awkward. He obviously held the advantage, but in depths of his heart, he had a kind of empty feeling. His aura was being suppressed like a stone in the sea. It was instantly swallowed by the waves, and he couldn't feel even the smallest ripples. The Ronin wind and flame cut suddenly lost all of its rotation torque and he executed a final strike. The sky howled as flashes of fire streaked downwards. It was like a lava waterfall quickly falling down. Flame waterfall kill. The viewers from Mars roared in the channel. The ultimate move after the Ronin wind and flame cut. In Mars, few people could force the Flame Ronin into using this move. The Earth people were truly blessed this time. Ohm. The continuous high-speed collisions of the alloy knife hit the waterfall like fire. Every cut was struck at the same point, trying to weaken the power of the waterfall, but the force was unstoppable. Boom! The war god number 1 was struck and he flew out. The flame exploded onto its chest and the mech was blasted away. A strong force pushed the war god number 1 out of the platform and into the lava. Kai, Skeleton instantaneously reacted. The alloy knife stabbed into the ground, causing earth and stones to fly. He had managed to stay on the edge of the plate and stopped only one step away from the lava. After pulling the alloy knife out from the ground, the war god number 1 suddenly turned and started spinning the knife while stabbing at a high speed. The engine roared to life as the war god number 1 rushed towards Flame Ronin. If one ignored the fact that there was no flame, this move was the fire-free version of the Ronin wind and flame cut. Lai Guang's eyes flashed. It was not just a pose. That knife wind was the opponent playing with him. Rumble. Directly in front of his eyes flashed a pale, red light as he looked past the visual illusion. It was his own move. How could Lai Guang be a coward? At this time, the war god number 1 suddenly stopped, and the momentum from the rotation instantaneously concentrated onto the alloy knife. Ohm! A steel-colored waterfall fell towards the flaming mountain 5th generation. Flame waterfall kill, the fire-free version, steel waterfall kill. Bang! The heavy cut was unstoppable. Ronin roared. The flaming mountain 5th generation also got struck directly and flew outwards. The blazing knife dug into the ground, keeping him from flying backwards, and he had also stopped at the edge of the platform, only 2 steps away from falling into the lava. The Martian visitors were sluggish, and the noise stopped like a duck being silenced at the neck. Didn't people say that all Earth people were lame? Why was this one so scary? Lai Guang took a deep breath. He suppressed the anger rising in him, but the corner of his mouth again revealed a slightly angry smile. He didn't expect Skeleton to be playing so seriously. Even the last blow was exactly the same. No matter who they were, they had to pay the price if they wanted to laugh at the Lai family. It seems like you can imitate my moves really well. Open the public channel. Lai Guang's low voice came out. He was wanton and unrestrained. Even for the sake of freedom, he would abandon his family, but deep down he had the dignity that the Lai family could never be disgraced. The war god number 1 stood there like a statue. No matter who you are, you can't imitate this. Die. After he finished, Lai Guang then shut down the public channel and focused on the blazing knife in his hands. In that moment, Flaming Mountain 5th generation's momentum completely changed. It was like a qualitative sublimation had happened. His mech also seemed much bigger. The blazing knife suddenly fluttered and started rotating in his palm. It began very slowly, but 2 seconds later, it became a vortex of flame. Ultimate great move.